Emily Carter had always believed that books were more than paper and ink. They were shelter, memory, and purpose, especially for a schoolteacher like her. For 12 years, she had taught English at a public middle school in a small Montana town, spending her evenings grading papers and rereading her favorite novels. Her modest wooden house sat at the edge of the forest, filled with shelves she had built herself, each one heavy with books collected since her college days. It wasn't a rich life, but it was a meaningful one, and Emily was proud of it. Everything changed in one terrifying night. A wildfire, driven by strong autumn winds, tore through the valley faster than anyone expected. Emily woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of sirens screaming in the distance. By the time she ran outside, the sky glowed orange, and ash fell like black snow. Emergency alerts buzzed on her phone, ordering an immediate evacuation. She grabbed only what she could carry, her purse, her coat, and a framed photo of her parents, before fleeing in her old car. By morning, her neighborhood was gone. Emily stood behind the safety line with dozens of other residents, staring at the smoking remains of what had once been her home. The fire had taken everything: her clothes, her furniture, her lesson plans, and worst of all, her books. The library she had built over years was now nothing but ash. The loss felt deeply personal, as if a part of her identity had burned with the house. She tried to stay strong, but the weight of it all left her numb. Insurance would take time. The school offered sympathy but little else. With winter approaching and no place to stay, Emily faced a frightening reality: she had nowhere to go. She spent a few nights on a friend's couch, feeling like a burden, before deciding she needed a temporary solution. Through a local relief board, she found short-term work offered by a ranch owner outside town. The job included room and meals, though the pay was modest. The ranch sat miles away from the burned valley, surrounded by wide open land and rolling hills. When Emily arrived, dust-covered and exhausted, she was greeted by Jack Miller, the rancher. He was tall, quiet, and looked older than his years, his face marked by long days under the sun and something deeper: loss, perhaps. He spoke little but offered her a spare room and explained her duties calmly. As Emily unpacked the few belongings she had left, she felt both grateful and uncertain. She didn't know how long she would stay or what the future held. All she knew was that she had survived the fire, even if the life she once knew had not. Unaware to her, this quiet ranch, and the man who owned it, would soon become part of a story she never imagined for herself. Life on the ranch followed a rhythm very different from the one Emily had known. Mornings began before sunrise, with cold air biting her skin as she stepped outside. Her days were filled with simple but demanding tasks: feeding horses, organizing supplies, and helping with paperwork Jack had long neglected. The physical work left her tired in a way teaching never had, yet it also kept her from thinking too much about what she had lost. Still, when evening came and silence settled over the land, the emptiness returned. Jack Miller was not an unkind man, but he was distant. He spoke only when necessary, his words measured and careful. Emily noticed that he avoided certain parts of the house and spent long hours alone, repairing fences or riding across the fields. There was a heaviness about him, as if he carried something unresolved. Though they shared meals at the same table, conversation remained brief, filled with polite exchanges rather than personal stories. One night, after dinner, the power went out during a sudden storm. Rain hammered against the roof, and the house fell into darkness. Jack lit a lantern and set it between them. In the quiet glow, Emily felt a strange urge to speak. Perhaps it was the storm, or the loneliness she had been holding inside for weeks. She told him about the fire. Her voice shook as she described waking up to smoke, the panic of leaving her home, and the pain of losing her books. She explained how reading had guided her through every stage of her life, how teaching without her personal library felt like losing a part of herself. Jack listened without interrupting, his eyes fixed on the lantern flame. When she finished, silence filled the room again, but it felt different this time. Jack stood in motion for her to follow him. They walked down a narrow hallway to a door Emily had never seen open. Jack hesitated before unlocking it, as if preparing himself. Inside was a room untouched by time. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined the walls, filled with hundreds of books, novels, poetry, history, and teaching guides. A reading chair sat near the window, a blanket folded neatly over its arm. "This was my wife's," Jack said quietly. "Sarah was a teacher." Emily felt her breath catch. The room was warm, alive in a way the rest of the house was not. Jack explained that Sarah had died in a car accident years ago, and he had kept the library closed ever since. It was too painful to enter, too full of memories. But seeing Emily's loss had stirred something in him. She would have wanted someone to use them, he said. You're welcome here, any time. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she ran her fingers along the spines of the books. In that moment, she felt something shift, not just gratitude, but connection. The ranch no longer felt like a place of exile. It felt like the beginning of something fragile, shared, and deeply meaningful for them both. Emily began spending her evenings in the library. At first, she entered the room quietly, almost reverently, as if afraid to disturb the memories resting on the shelves. She chose books carefully, returning each one to its place with respect. Reading again filled a space inside her she hadn't realized was still aching. The stories helped her sleep, helped her breathe, and slowly reminded her of who she was beyond the fire and the loss. Jack noticed the change in her. She smiled more, spoke with warmth, and carried a calm confidence that had been missing when she first arrived. Some evenings, he found himself standing outside the library door, listening to the soft turn of pages. Though he rarely entered, the sound comforted him. The room, once sealed in grief, no longer felt like a wound. It felt alive again. As weeks passed, Emily began tutoring Jack's sister's 2 children who visited the ranch after school. Using the books from the library, she created lessons, just as she used to in her classroom. Laughter returned to the house, echoing down hallways that had been quiet for years. Jack watched from a distance, surprised by how natural it felt to see life filling the spaces he had kept closed. One evening, Jack finally joined Emily in the library. He picked up a book Sarah had loved and sat across from her. They didn't speak much, but their silence was no longer uncomfortable. It was shared. Jack told her small stories about his wife, how she used to read aloud during storms, how she believed books could save people. Emily listened with care, honoring Sarah not as a memory to be feared, but as a presence to be respected. Winter arrived softly, covering the ranch in snow. Emily received a call from the school district, offering her a permanent position once the new term began. It was everything she had hoped for, and yet, the thought of leaving the ranch made her chest tighten. That night, she told Jack about the offer. He congratulated her sincerely, but his eyes reflected the same quiet sadness she felt. On her last evening before deciding, Emily returned to the library one final time. Jack followed her there, unsure of what he would say. In that room of shared loss and healing, he finally spoke from the heart. He told her that her presence had given him something he thought he'd lost forever, hope. Emily realized then that the fire had not only destroyed her past, but guided her toward a future she never could have planned. The ranch, the library, and the man standing beside her had become home. And in choosing to stay, she understood that some stories don't end, they begin again, written quietly, one shared chapter at a time.